NBC News World Headquarters in New York. This is NBC Nightly News with Brian Williams. Brought to you with limited commercial interruption by Trilipix.
Good evening. As we mentioned, tonight's broadcast coming to you with limited commercial interruption. That means more time for the news in the broadcast, and so we thought we would begin it a little differently. We're in the newsroom just on the other side of the nightly news studio, and we're here because this is where we've been receiving reports for days now on the situation in Iran. In a moment, we will chat with Richard Engel, our chief foreign correspondent, but we're also joined in the newsroom tonight by our political director and chief White House correspondent for our other big story. We are debuting a new poll tonight with some fascinating new numbers. It's the new NBC News Wall Street Journal poll. It tells us what Americans think of their still new president these days. Chuck Todd is here from Washington to start us off on that. Chuck, some interesting findings.
Well, Brian, look, the honeymoon is coming to an end for President Obama, but it's not personal. It's professional, as now the public appears to be judging the president on some of his actions. And right now there's a growing concern about the budget deficit and some of this government interaction into the economy on things like GM.
It remains to be seen whether a lot of these initiatives are going to actually work. The jury's out.
Well, the jury might not be out on two political issues. Judge Sonia Sotomayor, she's being well received by the public, as well received as Chief Justice John Roberts was when he was nominated. And Brian, the Republican Party's not benefiting from any of this hesitancy on President Obama. They are hit another all-time low in their public image.
There was another dynamic in the poll about the auto industry, one I found very familiar, very believable, and how Americans are responding to American automakers being in trouble.
A patriotic response. We laid out the entire situation about GM and Chrysler for them in the poll, and of course there's been so much coverage of it. And yet, despite all that, we said, would you buy American? Would you consider buying American? By a 3-to-1 margin, say they're now more likely to buy American.
Interesting stuff. We're going to talk to you a bit later on about the politics of the foreign story we're covering tonight. Chuck Todd with us here on the poll. And we move to that other major story we've been covering, the protests, the violence in Iran following charges that the election there was rigged. Our chief foreign correspondent, Richard Engel, was there as recently as this past weekend. The Iranians refused to renew his visa. So he's with us here in the newsroom following it all. It's getting tougher to cover this story because of restrictions, but we're still getting enough to get a beat on this, right?
It's difficult because Iran is now really trying to silence the opposition. Human rights groups say that at least 200 activists have so far been detained or simply disappeared since last week's election. And today, Iran moved further to cut communications. This is the protest Iran doesn't want the world to hear if the protesters' demands will be met. Mousavi has called for more demonstrations tomorrow and for even bigger ones on what is likely to be a pivotal day, Friday.
And in just a minute, Richard will talk about the ongoing politics of this situation, perhaps get some predictions. A short time ago, I had a conversation with our Tehran bureau chief, Ali Arouzi. We want to show it to you. We've been talking a lot about restrictions on what we can cover. As you watch this videotape, you will see evidence of the electronic efforts to shut down communications as our signal during the conversation takes a hit. We started by asking Ali what it was like on the streets there today, even though he can't take pictures of what he saw. Ali, I know you've been out on the streets today, and while you're prevented from broadcasting the pictures of what's going on out there, describe for us the scene in Tehran.
That's right. New wave of very, very upset emotions.
Ali Arouzi, our Tehran bureau chief. Ali, thanks. The whole world is watching the extraordinary events in Iran, perhaps nowhere more so in this country than parts of Los Angeles. That's become home to hundreds of thousands of Iranian expats in recent years. They're watching, and as NBC's George Lewis reports tonight, they're worried about what they see.
George Lewis, NBC News, Los Angeles.
And we're back, and as promised, we're joined by our chief White House correspondent, Chuck Todd, our chief foreign affairs correspondent, Richard Engel, to talk about all this. Chuck, let's start with you. You're in the White House. Is the advice you're giving to the president what we're seeing, and that is you gave, no, if you were asked, if you gave the speech to the Muslim world, Is he now just hanging back? Is that what we're seeing?
Well, that's the advice he's getting, which is, and he said it himself, he's feeling a little bit of pressure because these pictures are overwhelming. This is a classic case. Picture's worth 1,000 words. It's worth 100,000 words in this case. And I think he realizes he had to explain, why hasn't he been more supportive of these protesters? He's fearful of the idea of American meddling, and that's the advice he's being given. He's being told by, I think, our intelligence folks down on the ground there that, hey, the mullahs are in their own political fight. This is a domestic power struggle inside of Iran. The U.S. has to look like it's staying as far away from it as possible, and that's the consultation, by the way, that he's having with the leaders of France, England, Germany, and some of the key Western European allies who also have a lot of intelligence on the ground there.
We're also starting to hear the phrase, be careful what you wish for. And on the Iran front, there's really no telling which way this goes, although Friday, as you pointed out, is shaping up to be a big day this week. Why is that?
The Supreme Leader is going to give his assessment of whether he will go back on what he says. He, right now, has only agreed to a partial recount. The opposition is not accepting that. They want a full new election, and we're supposed to hear from the Supreme Leader about this on Friday. Already, however, there are indications that he is going to accept President Ahmadinejad today in a broadcast statement. He called him the victor and said that people who lost the election should try and remain calm.
If that happens, of course, all bets may be off. Everyone is hoping for a peaceful ending to this. Richard Engel, Chuck Todd, gentlemen, thank you both. When our broadcast continues tonight, again, with limited commercial interruption this evening, President Obama wants to head off future economic meltdown.